So, you're an organization and you're trying to stand up your advanced analytics capability. We've seen this in a number of places over the course of our careers. One of the first things that can happen is you start to overload that analytics team, right?
Right.
You're trying to get your insights. You become infatuated with the insights that you're able to get, and you start craving more. The business craves more. You start wanting to expand the scope of what you're able to do with that data. You might want to be starting to incorporate machine learning or AI into your how you're approaching solving problems. But very quickly that analytics group can grind almost to a halt. Your planning cycles may get out of sync. You may be asking a question of your data, and your analytics group comes back and says, yeah, we can queue that up in our next big bang planning next quarter. What's going on here? So very quickly you'll start to assume that, man, we need to increase the capacity of our analytics team. We have a big data capacity problem. I would venture that you don't have a capacity problem. You have a backlog problem. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, you sort of teed up the right spot, right? It's the right the right conditions. The conditions you usually kind of see is, even if it's not the machine learning or AI, right? Like the sexier, if you will, data science, even if it's just basic analytics, you have this like project that usually gets kicked off. There's a ton of energy, a lot of momentum, and energy starts to get applied to a system to ask for data, ask for insights. And a lot of times what you see is happens, all the energy, all the request, like kicks off that hopeful flywheel, but they don't quite understand how they're talking to each other yet. Like in our last discussion, what is a visit? Some of these things like are undefined. And so you have this inflow and this constant intake of request for work that just gets bigger and bigger because more and more questions are being asked of what is you really want and need. The architecture may not be built. And I want to say architecture, right? I'm not meaning just like the data warehouses. It's the entire like system of flow of data is not maybe purpose built for the questions you're asking. And the questions you're asking aren't necessarily the best questions to be asking for the insights analytics. So you have this like impasse and they just start feeding off each other. It's like this wicked feedback loop. Is the more you don't know over here to ask of the data, the more data you start to request because it takes longer and longer because they don't know what you're trying to ask for. And to your point, right? Like the way you start to do that is really like going to the basics, the first principles of, like if you and I walked in someplace, well, let me just look at your backlog. You can tell quite a bit of the status of a system if you just look at the backlog.
Yeah, and I think you touched on a really good point of not speaking the same language, because I think that gets to the core of what I mean when I say you have a backlog problem is, to your point, there are many different kinds of questions that you can ask of your data. The insights that you want to draw around who are my customers, what are their buying patterns, what are the things that truly differentiate our product offering and market. It's a very different set of questions than, hey, how do I optimize my supply chain to make sure that I have the right parts in the right warehouse at the right time without, blowing up my inventory. So, and both of those things are very, very impactful, valid questions that you want to ask of your data and analytics.
Yep.
But if your data and analytics team doesn't have or isn't embedded in your structure is not right to have those people understand the business value, and your overall, demand management intake structure isn't there to prioritize those requests against each other, or, let's say you're not organized into the right value streams to encapsulate those requests. How do you, if your analytics team assumes that the business has that sorted out, all of a sudden it's just a first in, first out scenario, and your analytics team considers that they have one backlog, but they have one backlog with two number one priorities. because they have more than one backlog. And I think that's what I really mean when I say you have a backlog problem, is if you being the analytics group, the leader of an analytics group, or the technology leader of a company who happens to have an advanced analytics team underneath them, if you view that team as having a single backlog, if you view the business as having a single backlog of requests that go to an analytics team, you're positioning yourself for failure out the gate.